Hello, hello. Welcome to What's Working Now. I am your host, Katie Richardson, and I am here with the world's most amazing entrepreneur, in my humble yet accurate opinion. You guys know that we talk entrepreneurship, we talk business, we talk life, and the intersection of all of those things. And I bring exceptional people to you because I'm curious about exceptional people. And today's guest is somebody who I need to give, like, before I do the actual introduction, I need to give you guys a little bit of a preface. This is somebody who came into my world 3-4 years ago. We met not randomly, at an event, and he's somebody who's just a go-getter from a really young age, and I was very fascinated by him and very, very impressed. Long story short, he ends up coming into my world, being a client of mine, working together for 2 years. This is the awesome and the amazing Josh Forti. Josh,
Katie,
say hi really quick. I haven't even given a bio on you.
Katie, thank you so much. Man, what an intro. And we haven't even done the intro yet. That's incredible. Thank you so much for having me on here. And I like what you said. It happened by chance, but not by chance, right? Happened randomly, but not randomly at all. We met at that big ClickFunnels launch party where we were playing bubble soccer. We had our first conversation. I think that was where we first happened. So that's super exciting. Super excited to be here, to dive in. We're going to have a blast.
Josh, I'm excited to dive into your story because you are somebody who have been able to beat all of the odds, right? You grew up in this really big family, amazing family, but didn't have access to significant wealth, didn't have access to maybe bigger thinking. And you are somebody who it just was in you. And you have this tremendous drive, this tremendous ambition, and a way of thinking that I believe is very unique and special and different. And today we're going to dive into a lot of that. Before we do any of that, I want to ask an important question, which is, tell us the story of a moment that has really transformed and shaped who you are today.
Jeez. Man, there's so many. So yeah, well, first off, guys, for anybody listening, let me give my preface for this, which is Katie Richardson changed my entire life. So she's not going to pitch you, but I will go work with her. So let's see, a moment that changed my life. So like you said, I grew up in an interesting environment just because when I was 11 years old, my family, we actually grew up in the suburbs of Los Angeles. And when I was 11 years old, my mom and my dad were like, you know what? This isn't for us anymore. And so my dad quit his job. My parents sold their house. They moved us. My dad bought a semi truck and an RV, loaded all the stuff in the back of it. And we just drove across country and had no idea where we were going to end up. We thought maybe Vermont. We ended up in Indiana. And I grew up on a farm, like total life, moved. And I lived the next 10 years of my life, the next decade or so on a farm. Where my nearest neighbor was a half mile away. I was homeschooled and 7 siblings, 8 of us total. When you're homeschooled, you live on a farm. It's a very, very interesting life, to say the least, right? Very good. It was a good life, but very small life, right? My world was very, very small. I remember talking to my wife about this, and she's like, our worlds were just so different because hers was so big and mine was just so small growing up, right? Yeah. And so I think, it was interesting. There's so many different moments that I, could potentially do, but ironically, and this is not just because I'm on your podcast, I think probably one of the most defining moments in my life was the moment that I actually decided to work with you. So long story short, I got an entrepreneurship. I had no clue what I'm doing. Like I'm like, so no idea. Right. Like I thought $500 was like just astronomical amounts of money. I'd never made more than like $520 in a week before. Right. Like just so new world to me. And so I'm in this entrepreneurship world. I get started in Instagram, have a lot of success early on, first 2 years, manage, 5-6 million followers on social media for clients, get to hang out with not like A-list celebrity type people, but Instagram and social media celebrities, like all this, fun stuff. And then my brother dies in a helicopter crash, like just complete freak accident, right? Like just here I'm thinking $100 million company. All that matters is money, fame. Like this is great. And there's, reasons behind that, but like, that's all I was after. And then I get a phone call one day and it's my mom screaming on the other end of the phone that my brother's dead in a helicopter crash. She leaves behind a pregnant wife and a 5-year-old son. And it's just like, God, like, come on, man, like what's going on? And so I sell my company, I go around the world and I find myself in this very, very lost place, right? It was this weird mental mentality of, I know that I'm really good at what I do, right? Like I've had success and I'm young, right? At this time, right? This is a couple of years ago, right? Yeah. But like I've had Like, I know that I'm good at what I do. I've had, CEOs of billion-dollar companies want to come and work with me and, like this, like that for Instagram and social media, whatever. Yet I'm sitting there, I'm completely lost. I'm running out of money. And then I find myself, my then girlfriend at the time was with me. She's my wife now, but she gets sick with a parasite when we're overseas. And I find myself flying home and waking up in the basement of my girlfriend's mom's house on Christmas time. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Right. Like how did I get here and what comes next? Right. And so you look around and, the whole highs of highs and lows of lows, I've kind of done that a few times. Right. And at this point, it's a pretty low point. Right. And it's frustrating as an entrepreneur, any high performer, right, knows that like when you're at the bottom, it's really confusing because like in your head, you're like, I know what I'm doing. Right. Like, I know I'm good at it, but like, what, right. Like, where do I go? Like, how did I get here? And so I remember sitting there and I turned to my girlfriend at the time and I was like, I need a coach. Like, I'd never played sports growing up. I was homeschooled, right? I didn't play sports growing up, was never part of a team, like never had a coach before. This concept of mentoring and things like that was like new to me. Right. But I was just like, I looked around and it was just like, I'm a huge Tom Brady fan, right? Massive, massive Tom Brady fan. Like anybody, he's the GOAT, right? He's the best, the best, the best. And there's an interview series I was watching from him one time. And he goes, they interviewed all his coaches and stuff. They're like, what makes Tom Brady the best, right? He's not the best athlete. He doesn't have the best arm. How is he the best? And they said, Tom Brady is the most coachable person that we've ever met in our whole life. And it was like, okay, if it's good enough for Tom Brady, it's good enough for me, right? And so I start interviewing all these coaches. And what was very interesting, Katie, you were the only one that we're different because every coach that I interviewed, and by the way, these were great coaches. They have great coaching programs, things like that, right? Every single one of them was like, I'm going to plug you into my system and we're going to do this thing, right? Hey, we're going to help you make $1 million. Hey, we're going to help you launch a 6-figure funnel. Hey, we're going to help you do, and it was like specific thing, specific result. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've made $1 million. I've built a business before. I've had success. And here I am running out of money at the bottom of my life, sitting in my girlfriend's parents' basement. I don't need to know how to do that. I need someone that's going to come in and understand that there's something special inside of me. I don't know what it is, but I know it's there. Right. And so I think that defining moment, it was that moment of insane pain, mental pain, right? Insane mental confusion, insane mental and emotional like turmoil of like, what am I going to do with my life? Right. I've never felt more lost, I don't think, that I came to this point where I was like, I just need someone to come and to show me the way, not tell me what to do, but show me the way. Right. There's a big difference. And I got on the phone with you and you were the only person that was just like, yeah, you have greatness inside of you. I'll show you how to unlock it. You're in your own head. And like, it was the weirdest thing, right? Katie's like, come on now. Like, that's not anything profound, right? That's not anything like that I never heard before, but it was like the way you said it, it was like, okay, all right. I mean, what I got to lose? And then you told me the price and I was like, oh, okay, that's what I have to lose. All right. So, and then I took that leap of faith. I think that was a defining moment. That was a defining moment of my life. It was the moment that I decided, you know what? I'm going to commit to being something more than I am right now. I'm going to commit to live up to who I'm called to be, to unlock the potential I know is inside of me. And I know I can't do that alone. It's not possible, right? I have to have a guide. I have to have a mentor. And I think that was a massively defining moment. One of the biggest defining moments of my life so far. I mean, outside of marriage, but it's a little bit of a different story, but but like, as far as a career is concerned, and like I said, not just because I'm on your show talking about this and I've told that story many times, but I think that was it.
Well, and Josh, like to go back to what you were saying about Tom Brady and he's the most coachable, like to make that decision and make that leap was a huge bet on you, right?
Yeah.
It was a huge bet on you and you made that decision. And I personally know the inner turmoil that we have to face when making a decision like that. And it could be very easy to bet on somebody else. You come in, you fix this,
right?
You make it happen. And you made a totally different decision of, I'm going to be the one who gets myself out of this with a coach and a mentor. But, making that huge bet on yourself, I think everybody who's watched your journey over the last 2 years would agree that that was a very bold yet very wise decision.
Yeah.
How did you go ahead?
Sorry. Well, and what's interesting is like, it's easy for everybody to look at it now and be like, great decision, Josh. But like, nobody thought it was a good decision. It was weird. I remember like shortly after, maybe, a couple months afterwards, I had made a post on Facebook, right? And I was talking about basically there was an opportunity that had come up and I could either go take out a loan, right? Or I could go and raise money for my community, or I could just skip it altogether, right? And in the post, in the comment section or whatever, and it blew up, right? Everyone has their opinion on what you should do, right? But I remember I had mentioned that I had spent, committed to this $60,000, just massive contract, right? It's like, it's ridiculous, right? And I mean, even people that sold coaching, even people that were like millionaires were like, well, I mean, step number one is, why'd you spend so much money on a coach? Like, go make some money first, right? And it was like weird because I was like, I didn't even doubt the decision, right? But they did. And everybody else around me looked at it. And now everyone looks at me now and is like, well, it's great that you can blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not like, no, like I had to make the decision. I had to bet on me. And I think what you said there is very true. When you buy into a system, when you buy a funnel, and I love funnel. I mean, I got a funnel hacker shirt on, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I love Russell. I love the, ClickFunnels. Like, but when you're buying, hey, we're going to show you how to build a funnel, or we're going to show you how to do a launch, we're going to show you how to do whatever, right? Which are all good things. You're betting on a system. You're betting, hey, will this system work? Yes or no? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how you make lots and lots of money. But at the end of the day, all that comes after you bet on yourself, right? And there's no bigger bet than betting on yourself, right? Because the system will work, great, but it'll only work if the person that's operating the system knows how to use it, right? And so so I love that. I love that.
That's why you and I resonate on those things so much. And to be clear, it's not like that was the first investment that you had made. You had taken courses.
Oh yeah.
You had bought programs and systems. You had learned all of the tactics and the processes and the systems and had been implementing them. And yet you still were hitting a ceiling.
Right. And that was the interesting part because, growing up, without getting into too much detail, like money was always a stress point, right? And hard work was always the solution. And so it was like, sweet, I'm going to work. And I was, Gary Vaynerchuk early on, I was a big fan of his, right? Hustle, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that was me, right? I didn't go to bed till 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, every single night. I was working 7 days a week, no time off, locked myself in a room. I had no friends, right? And like my whole family knows this, right? This is verifiable. Like go back and ask anybody, right? Like I was a workaholic. And here I was doing all the work. I had bought the systems. I had all the traffic. Like everyone's like, oh, we need more leads. I had all the leads in my business you could possibly want. Like I did my first webinar, 2,000 people registered for it and didn't spend a dime on ads, right? Like I had the traffic, I had all the systems and pieces here and they were all sitting there and it was like wall, plateau. And that's what was so confusing. It's like, I've got the pieces. I know I do, right? And not even the money pieces, right? Like I knew people and but yet no matter what, there was that wall. And it was the wall internally. It was this internal story, this internal battle that it's the weirdest thing. It really, really is, right? How much, we oftentimes think that our external circumstances determine our internal reality. And the exact opposite is true, right? It's like completely I will tell you with everything that I am, the exact opposite is true, right? Your external circumstances play very little into your internal mind. Your internal mind plays everything into your external circumstances. But you taught me that.
Yeah, that's a big part of the work that we've done together. Josh, as you were going through all of these experiences, the world teaches us that money solves all of your problems. And I think a lot of times as a young entrepreneur, we have these big dreams, these big visions. First, I need to make 6 figures, then I need to make 7 figures. And as you go through and you do the hard work, like you talked about, you hustle, you grind, you sleepless nights, I'll sleep when I'm dead mentality, Gary Vaynerchuk. You go and you get the big paychecks, and yet like something's still off. How confusing and disorienting was that when money wasn't solving the problem, right? You go, you figure it out, you make a bunch of money, and that kind of becomes the default. I'm going to go make more money. And yet that didn't seem to be fixing the problem. What did that feel like?
Yeah.
Because I know that big checks were not a part of your upbringing. And so to begin to experience that and still have, quote, problems,
yeah.
How disorienting was that?
Yeah, I remember the first time that I had 100,000, like my bank account balance crossed $100,000. right? And I was like, this is really weird because I'll never forget when I first got into entrepreneurship, I had this job that I was working while I was trying to build my entrepreneurship journey. And I would go and I had to drive like, 30 or 30 minutes each way to this job. And sometimes like I just couldn't sleep at night or I'd be down there or whatever. And it just made more sense just to be down by my job. And so I would like sleep in my car, or I would go and I'd go early and I would go and I would read these books. Right. And I remember Grant Cardone talked about one time, and I was reading his book and he goes, I had never been more terrified about money as I was when I made my first $1 million. I was like, the frick, what are you talking about? That's not possible. Right. And here I'm looking at opening up my bank account balance and there's $540 in checking and $200 in savings. And it's like, all right, we're going to make this happen. Right. And then I remember, fast forward to this first time I had $100,000, and I remember being terrified. I was like, well, now I got to keep it. Right. And now I got all these problems and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that having money is a bad thing or anything, or like that being poor is better than being rich. I'm just saying it's a different problem. It's just different. Right. And you get there and you kind of look around and you go, well, now how do I keep it? Now, what do I do with it? Now, where do I put it? Now, what? And I remember sitting there going, I thought that money was going to solve my problems. And now money is my problem. And now I'm confused. Right. Yeah. And what was interesting was, even though I was making money, I didn't know what to do with it. I was constantly stressed out. And I remember just waking up, just being miserable, right? Because now, like, I knew how I had gotten there. I'd worked really, really hard. But then well, this sucks. And like, the goal was to eventually have enough money to where I didn't have to work super hard. And while $100,000 isn't that much money, right? It's really not. It's kind of, whatever, right? But like, when you very first have it, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? And so it was a very confusing time, because for the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do. Right? Like, when I was broke, I knew what to do. I just wanted to not be broke. Right? Like, that was the goal. It was like, okay, cool. I'm driving to work with my window duct tape shut, right? At 4:00 in the morning, right? And driving Uber on the weekends to try to make some extra money. Cool. You know what you do? You get up, you go to work, you save your money. It's easy. Then you quit your job and you're like, well, crap, I got to get my business off the ground, so I'm not going to go bankrupt. But then you start to have some money and you're like, now what? Like, what do I do? And for me, it was the weird thing, because once I hit it, then I fell, right? For me, I hit it and then I went, well, it was a little bit more than 100 grand that I had, before I fell, but I continued to go and go and go. And then I became so miserable and so stressed out and so overworked and so overwhelmed that it went from there to just crash, right? And it was that moment of, okay, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know how to get there, you got a big problem, right? And I put this on my Instagram story all the time. There's 3 things you need to be successful, right? 1, you need a vision and a goal. 2, you need a proven path to get there. And 3, you need hard work. Well, guess what? I had hard work. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how to get there. And I don't know how to get there because I don't know where I'm going, right? And every time I would set my goal on something, imposter syndrome would hit. Right? It's like, well, I'm going to go build the biggest Facebook group. Oh, everybody else already got that. I'm going to go be the podcast. Oh, everybody's already got. I'm going to go to Instagram. Oh, somebody's already. It's like that. It's like that thing in your head. You're just like, I don't know. Like, what's my thing? I don't know. Someone's already done it. Right. And I think, it was a very, very confusing time when you have money and you don't know where to go. You don't know what to do with it. You don't know what the next steps are, especially in business. Right. Very confusing.
Yeah. So confusing. Thank you for sharing all of that. This is what I love about you, is you're very open to sharing in intimate detail your experiences. And I really appreciate how that helps everybody who's listening and helps them relate to you. Because I think when somebody first initially meets you, this guy's super sharp. This guy is very well connected. This guy knows exactly what he's doing. And it's easy to believe that you've just always been that way. And I think it's so beautiful to see and understand this transformation that you have very intentionally created. And one of the things that I think a lot of people who have followed you for years have seen is you've gone from being the guy who did the sleepless nights, did the hustle, worked on the weekends, didn't turn it off until, midnight. And you've made a big shift. Tell everybody, how it used to be and how you operate now.
Yeah, it was interesting. So my wife, before we were married, she was the general manager of a sports bar. And so, and she's boss, she's amazing. Right. So what's interesting about her and I is we're both very driven. We're both very motivated to hit the goals and things like that. She works best when she gets to be the boss inside of a system, but she's not like the entrepreneur, right? It's the one level down, right? It's I call the shots, I run the show, I get everything done. At 25 years old, she's managing 70 employees. She's got the smallest restaurant with the highest profit. She can, completely transform everything. But when you're a sports bar, when you work at a sports bar, you close at 2, you get off work at 3, and you're home by, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So guess what? Even before I met her, I was working till that hours. And then that happened and it was just even more, right? And so she would work crazy hours. I would work crazy hours. And it was the time we woke up, she'd go to work, I'd go to work, and we'd work and 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 work. And that was it. It was constant. And it was this identity, right? Because it's like, I will outwork you. I'm the hardest worker. I'm this, I will out hustle you. I will out grind you. I will create more content than you. I will do this. And it was this identity. And it was like anything is fun for a short period of time, right? So like, I'm not going to lie. There were days that it was like, this is the freaking life, right? Like it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
But after a while you go, this can't be everything, right? This can't keep up. It's unsustainable, right? 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, every single morning, working, taking calls from people overseas at, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning doing sales calls and, going, I'm like, this is ridiculous, right? And it was this identity that I had to do everything. It was this belief that it had to be me, right? That if I wasn't working the hardest worker in the room, that nobody else would work hard, right? I had to, be the one and inspire everybody and do all the things. And it was just physically and mentally draining. And it was more mentally exhausting than it was physically exhausting, because after a while you just go, I don't understand how I scale. And I'll never forget, I went to Funnel Hacking Live, and this is when I'm working 7 days a week. This is actually before I was with my wife. I went to Funnel Hacking Live. I was sitting there. I'm in like the second row. I'm sitting next to Steve Larson, right? And Allison Prince walks on stage. We're down in Orlando, right? And I love Allison, right? She's amazing. Had her on the show. She's awesome. She gets up on stage. I don't know her at the time. And she gets up on stage and she's like, I made millions of dollars doing basically nothing, right? Like I work 40 hours a week. My kids make 6 figures. It's just, everything is wonderful. And I remember I was so mad. Like I got up and I walked out of the room and I was like, screw you. Like that is not possible. I don't understand. I am working literally 2, 3, 4 times as hard as this woman. And she's making 10 times the amount of money. I was so frustrated. I was so upset, right? Because I'd hit this wall, I'd hit this plateau. And it's like, I'm not making the money I want to make. I'm killing myself in the process. Everything's being beat up. It's super, super confusing, right? But growing up, it's hard work. I grew up on a farm. Make $12 an hour, sun up to sundown, 5 a.m. You're milking the goats and milking the cows. And, 6 p.m. you're doing the same thing and you're baling hay. And that's just what you did, right? You just worked.
Yeah.
And that was before, right? And you get into this mode where, you could probably do that you probably do it your whole life, maybe, but you're going to live a really miserable life. And I read a quote, I think it was Charlie Munger, who's like, if you work your whole life, you'll never have time to make any money, right? And like that quote, he was talking about money, but it's like, if you work your whole life, you'll never have time to insert the thing. You'll never have time to live a life. You'll never have time to make money. You'll never have time to build the life that you want. You'll never have time to learn. You'll never have time to think. You'll never have time to grow. You'll never have time to become the best version of yourself. Right. And it was just that very interesting thought. And so I wrestled with it, right? When we started working together, that was probably one of the hardest things for me to let go of, is I'm like, what do you mean you want me to work less? I'm not making enough money. I need to work more. And you're like, and how are you going to do that? And I'm like, I don't know, Katie, I'll figure it out. Right. Like it was that, kind of that thing. Yeah. And so the shift became, when you have clarity, when you know where you're going, when you know how leverage works, when you understand that when you're in alignment with where you're going, work becomes almost effortless. Now, that is going to seem so ridiculously counterintuitive to anybody that's listening right now that doesn't understand. If that's where you're at right now, super cool, man. Like I get it. I was right there. Right. But when you go and you know where it is that you're going, the only way that I can think about it is, imagine you are on water, right? Like you're in the ocean. And if you've ever like looked at the ocean and you've looked at the currents in the ocean, there's like maps of where the currents are going, right? You could be the strongest swimmer. You can have a boat with an engine on it, and you can be trying your hardest to go one direction. But if you are going against the current, you're going to lose. Like you won't win. It's impossible, right? You have to go with the current. And what happens is when you have clarity of where you're going and you know how you're going to get there, You literally just figure out what current is going to take you where it is that you want to go. And you put your boat in there. And like, yes, you have to do work, but you basically just sit back and navigate and you just let the current take you. And when I came into working with you or whatever, I was like, it was so hard to get clients. It was so hard to convince people to give me money. It was so hard. The most money I'd ever made on a launch before was like $60,000 or something like that on a launch. And that like took every ounce of effort that I possibly had to make that amount of money. And, 100 days into working with you, I do a launch and make $150,000 in 9 days. And I'm like, the frick just happened, right? It was just this weird shift. And it's that thing of beforehand, I was working so hard against the current. I was working so hard. And that identity of like, I'm going to be the strongest swimmer. I'm going to be the fastest swimmer. When in reality, somebody else is like, you idiot, I can be the slowest, weakest swimmer and just line up with the current and beat you every time. And that's what was happening, right? That was the difference.
The world, we value hard work. Hard work is important, right? But when you're somebody like you, who's this high performer who knows how to very well live in the extremes, you take that to the extreme, and then that hard work becomes then the very thing that's getting in the way for you. And, probably most of society, well, a lot of people need to hear you need to work harder and you need to be more disciplined, but that was not the issue. In fact, that was that you had utilized that operating system and it had worked for you and had gotten you results, but now was the thing that was getting in your way.
100%. And it's interesting. I have a following on social media, right? It's nothing crazy, but no, controversy is not something that I shy away from, right? Yes. I embrace it readily. And I don't just talk about entrepreneurship. I talk a lot about religion and I talk about politics and I talk about money and business and just basically anything you're not supposed to talk about. I'm like, sweet, that's what we're gonna talk about, right? And, I get a lot of criticism from people when I speak about hard work and, different things like that or whatever, right? And it's always interesting because a lot of the people, the people that criticize most are always the people that are not high performers, right? They always are in a different world, right? They're, and that doesn't make us better or worse, or it's just different, right?
Yes.
But as high performers, we operate at a different level. We do. We see the world differently. We see opportunities differently. We see problems differently. Everything in our life is different, right? We look at our careers as a way not to advance just our career, but ourselves, right? To understand our minds better, to become the best version, right? We do all of those things. And so what's interesting is that there's levels, right? There's like the level when you're down in the muck, when you are broke, when you are poor, like there's currencies in life, right? One of them's money. One of them is relationships. One of them is just freaking brute hard work. And you know what's crazy is freaking brute hard work is one of the most expensive currencies, right? But it's the currency that has the least buying power, right? It's the cheapest. Sorry, so I had that backwards. It's the cheapest currency. Anybody can access it, but it has the least buying power. You need the most of it to get a result, right? Yes. And so it serves insanely, insanely well at the beginning because you're just like, I'm broke. I'm poor. My back is against the wall. I don't have money. You know what you do have? You have your time and you have work ethic, right? Cool. That's going to get you to a certain point. But at some point you start to realize I can only trade 24 hours in a day. That's all I have. And Warren Buffett has the exact same amount, right? So what's he doing differently, right? Russell Brunson, he's only got 24 hours. How did he build ClickFunnels? No venture capital, no debt, right? What was different, right? And you start to realize, hey, it's because they're using a different currency. And so you go and you trade that time for a more valuable currency that has a higher buying power. It's like trading dollars for Bitcoin, right? Dollars are going down, Bitcoin's going up, right? Yeah. Like you trade it and then you go, cool, wait a year or two. And now all of a sudden you can buy 10 times the amount of that you had with the exact same dollars that you would have, done. That's what it's like, right? And so I think, that's super, super interesting is you have to understand that like the thing that got you to where you're at right now is not going to be the thing that gets you to the next level. You can hustle your way to 6 figures. You may be able to hustle your way to 7 figures, maybe, right? But like you can't hustle your way past it. It just isn't possible.
No, and at that level, it will start to destroy you.
Just literally, mentally, emotionally, physically, your relationships. I mean, I married someone whose love language is quality time and physical touch. Like the worst possible combination for an entrepreneur, yet the best possible combination for me. I mean, our relationship is amazing. We spend so much time together, right? And I make more money now than beforehand, right? And I work less hours. Why? Because like when you understand that there's different currencies in life, and when you understand that, I think probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned when it comes to, and this goes along with that current thing, right? You get in the current, you call it alignment, right? One of the biggest things is that actions are not equal. The result that you get from taking actions are disproportionate in massive, massive ways, right? If I put $1 in a savings account and leave it for 20 years versus $1 in Bitcoin, it takes the exact same amount of time, right? But one's going down, one's going up. The same thing is true with opportunity. The same thing is true with work. The same thing is true with your relationships. And I used to be like, I don't have time for a relationship, right?
You did.
I didn't have, right? Like to the point where I was considering breaking up with my now wife, right? Because I didn't have time, right? And now I look at it and I go, the only reason I'm at where I'm at is because of that relationship. What changed? It's because what I didn't understand is that action in the long term was disproportionate return to any of the other actions that I was taking over here, right? What you do and what you're so ridiculously good at is helping people find the clarity of not only where they're going, because that's important, right? But the clarity of what actions are going to be disproportionately positive towards getting to that goal in a fraction of the time, right? Like that's what it is.
Time travel. I mean, why have it take 10, 15 years when you could do it in 2? Seriously.
Right. But for real.
Yes. You know, as I think about your story, there's so many peaks and valleys. And I think people, as they listen to you, this is a man who's very clearly passionate about some things, has tremendous drive. And I believe a lot of that drive comes from values. Are you open to sharing with us some of the things that are the values that you hold and carry and that drive you in getting past those valleys and those tough moments?
Yeah, for sure. This is probably one of my favorite topics so I grew up in a very religious home, and it was interesting because, man, that was like, it's the best thing that could have happened to me, but not because I just blindly followed it. In fact, I ran away the opposite direction for a while and was like, screw religion, right? But one of the things that there's a verse in the Bible that just stuck with me and has stuck with me, and I think this is true for anybody, whether you're religious or not, is that you must know what you believe and why you believe it and be able to defend it, right? It's, you have to, I forget what the exact verse is. It's escaping my mind. I say it all the time. You have to be able to give an account for what you believe, right? So when I look at it, I go, the thing that has served me better than almost anything else from a values perspective is to understand what it is that I actually believe and what it is that I'm actually after, and know why. Because if you don't know why and you're not able to defend it, anybody can come in and make you question everything. And I would say that in the internet marketing / ClickFunnels world, which is my world, I don't think there was anybody that was more openly criticized than I was during the year of 2020, right? Like when it came to my political beliefs, when it came to my stance on things, like massive name influencers, right, would come and openly criticize me. And people would, I mean, I got DMs and messages all the time that are like, I don't understand how you do it. I don't understand how you're able to go and just take it, man. Like you just get hit on it, like hit from all the different angles. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of support too, right? It just wasn't all this, but it was criticism. And it was because I understood what it is that I believe. And so a couple of those core fundamental values is, number one, I absolutely believe that we are here for a higher purpose, right? I believe that there is a higher purpose, call it God, call it spirit, call it universe. I believe in God. I believe in the God of the Bible. Go look at my Facebook feed and just watch how much I question the Bible. I'm not a blatant follower. Like literally my last post just had like 400 comments of people questioning, going back and forth about whether the Bible is real or not, right? But I believe in the God of the Bible, and I believe that there's a higher purpose, right? And so when you understand, okay, I'm here and I'm here for a reason, then I should probably go figure out what that reason is, right? So that's the first thing. Number two is I absolutely believe that you have to just be true to your word, right? Whatever you commit to, you just have to follow through, right? And like, it sucks. And sometimes you make mistakes, right? But like, if you say you're going to do something, follow through. And if you can't, make it right. There was someone who is now a very close friend of mine, but his name is Damon. And one of the first time we started working together, I'd only known him for a little bit. There's a recommendation. I had him on my podcast, and he hired me to do a launch. And I've done launches. I mean, I kill it on launches. That's what we do, right? Like we have made millions of dollars with it, and for our clients. And he came in, and it was just like, yeah, 100%, I'm in, right over right. It was a fairly large contract that he paid, and the launch just bombed. Like it just did not go well at all. It just failed miserably, right? And like, don't get me wrong, I in no way wanted to refund the very significantly large amount of money. But guess what? I was like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, we messed up, and I don't know why. So I'm gonna give you your money back. And I ended up giving him all of his money back. To this day, he's like, dude, that is the thing that has built more trust with you than anything else. He's now still a client to this day. We're working on a project now together. Yeah. I've been, hung out with him. We're very, very close friends. And it's because like, when you put your word on something, when you say, hey, I'm going to do this, like, follow through on your word, even if it is inconvenient. Take care of your clients. If you mess up, refund them, right? Like, go through and follow through on that. I think it's absolutely, absolutely critical. So I think understanding that you're here for there's a higher purpose, there's a higher calling, being very, very committed to what that is, and figuring that out. And two, being impeccable to your word, right? To say, hey, listen, if I commit to something, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow through, I'm going to do that. I think that's incredibly, incredibly important. And then three, this is different than just understanding that you're here for a higher calling and purpose, but have passion about your work. Like, if you don't like what you do, don't do it. Now, I'm not talking about in the short term. I'm not saying like, oh, I got sick and tired of a client, just go. But I'm saying, be passionate about what you do, because it is 100% inevitable that you will have bad days, bad weeks, bad months, right? And I told my wife this the other day. I was like, 2020, best freaking year of my life, right? Absolute. Everybody else had the worst year of their life. I'm like, I don't know what y'all talking about. Best year of my life. 2021, mess with my head, right? Like, it was weird. It was confusing. First half was great. Second half was super weird, right? And it was just like a lot of chaos. But the thing that kept me going through it is I loved what I did. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I'm learning. I'm committed. So when those times are difficult, when those times are hard, when you want to throw in the towel, that's when you look up and you go, well, what the frick else would I do? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so if you find and come to a point in your life when you go, what else would I do? Right? And the answer is, well, nothing else. Then you're on the right track. But if you're looking up and you're like, what else? That or anything but this, you're probably doing you're probably in the wrong thing, right? So I think that, and then finally, going back to that original thing of, but you got to know why you believe what you believe. Like, you've got to know what your own personal values are. And so I'm sharing these ones here, but I think one of the most important things that you can possibly do in your life before you do anything else is know why you believe what you believe. I don't care if that's in religion. I don't care if it's in business. I don't care if it's in your relationships. Understand why you do what it is that you do. Understand yourself. How do you make decisions? Why do you believe it? Why do you act the ways that you do? Because if you don't, it's all chance. It's random, right? You're not going to move forward. You're not going to be able to duplicate it, right? And so I started with that. I'll end with it again, but know you're here for a higher purpose and a higher calling. Be impeccable to your word. Be passionate about what it is that you do, and understand what you believe and why you believe it.
That was incredible. That was just absolutely amazing. And I know there's probably people listening saying, I want that level of confidence. I want that level of conviction and certainty that Josh has. What would you say to somebody who can't answer all of those questions and might be looking for the answers, right? What am I passionate about? What is it I'm really good at? How does somebody begin to even pursue answering those questions?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to do these in reverse order. I'm going to tell you what to do, but first I want to say, like, probably like 80% of your today life, you're going to like question everything. But like, that's why you have to know where you're going. And that's why you have to know like what you believe. Like, I know that I believe in God, and I know that I believe in Jesus. But guess what? On a daily basis, I question the Bible all the time. I question how things work. I question why God allows pain and suffering in the world. I question why the heck God took my brother and left behind a 5-year-old son and a baby on the way. Like, there's a lot of confusing things, but there's things I'm certain of. And so you're never going to have all the answers. You're never going to not question things. You're never going to have it all together. And you're certainly never going to feel like everything's going your way, right? Like you're always going to be confused. You're always going to struggle with imposter syndrome to a certain extent. The way that you overcome that is, I call it peaks and valleys, but peaks and valleys, not in life, but in your beliefs. You've got the peaks. It's like, I know that to be true. I know that to be true. And I know that to be true, right? Everything else can question, but like I can come back to that foundation, right? So it's like, for me, I know I believe in God. I know I love Leah and I know she loves me. And I know that what I do in my business is where I'm headed in my life. I know those things to be true, right? And so since I know those things and I'm certain of those things, all the daily life, I have good days and I have bad days. I have days when I wake up and I'm with Leah and I'm like freaking out, right? I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do here, blah, blah. And she's just like, all right. And I asked her this a couple of weeks ago, I was freaking out about something. It's like, do you ever just think I'm crazy? She's like, oh yeah, all the time. But I just know that you're fine because I know that you know where you're going. Like, I know, like you have a solid foundation, right? So I would say like, it's okay to be confused. It's okay to ask questions. That's how you find answers. That's how you make progress. How you don't let it cripple you is when you don't have any goals, when you don't know where you're going, when you don't know what you believe. Which brings me to the answer of, okay, if you're lost right now, where do you start? How do you find the answer to this question? And I'm just going to take it back to the very first phone call we ever had once we started coaching. It's one of the most phone calls that I will remember for the rest of my life. I've told this story probably 50 times now on different podcasts or whatever, but I hired you because my business was a mess and I was, losing money and I didn't know where the direction I was going and my life was a mess and I was in mental turmoil and all this. And I'm like, hey, Katie, like, what are you going to give me? And you're like, you're going to be able to talk to me and I'm going to coach you. Like, right. But like courses or anything? No. Like, okay, what about that? No. I'm like, all right. You're like, you can come to me with any question. Like, all right. That's all I needed to hear. Right. And first time, very, very first phone call we get on, I, pick up the phone and for the first, 20, 30 minutes, right? I am sitting there and I am just dumping everything on you. I am like, this is the problem in my business. This is the problem in my funnels, my webinars, my money, my mindset, just dump, right? Like every problem you could possibly have. I'm so confused. I'm so lost. I have no idea where I'm going, right? And I'm sitting there and you listen to it all. And then you go, all right. So Josh, I have a question for you. Who are you? And I'm like, how? I don't, like, it doesn't even compute in my mind. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything, right? Like, how does who I am? I don't know. I'm Josh Forti. Like, what do you want me to say, Katie? Like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm
I think one of the things you said,
I'm a Patriots fan, right? I'm a Patriots fan. That's my team, right? Like, they're my homie. And it's like, I don't understand. And you kept coming back to that question. And it was this question that I just fought for so long. And I'm like, why does it matter? Right. And you're like, because it all comes down to that. It all comes back to who you see yourself as. It all comes back to who you are. And you know what? If you don't know who you are, like, guys, I'm here to tell you from personal experience and from watching so many people, you'll never make it until you figure that question out. You can have success. You can make some money. You can get some followers, but it's going to be up and then it's going to come crashing down. It's going to come up and it's going to come crashing down. It's always going to pull you back because you cannot fight identity. It controls you. It is the thing that controls every aspect of your life. It controls your belief. It controls your actions. It controls your money. It controls your relationships. It controls your faith, your belief. Everything comes back to your identity, all of it. And so by going through and figuring out that question, which, I mean, we made progress right away, but it was 6 months, a year, right? To where I could finally confidently say, like, this is who I am. And I'm unshakably confident in that. Knowing that was the thing that allowed me to go and get on a podcast or get on a Facebook post and make a thing and have the world attack me and think I'm this just evil person that just wants, like, I'm like, Jiminy Christmas, like, I'm trying to help people here. Like, y'all are, acting like I'm out the devil out to hurt people. I'm like, I'm literally like, this is what you do if you want to succeed in life. Why are you mad at me? Right? Like, I don't get it. But it's because I'm like, well, here's the thing. I know this to be true. I know what I believe. I know who I am. You might have a problem with that, and that is okay. Right? And I think when you know who you are able to let go of everybody else's opinions, right? Which is
the opposite of where you were when we first met.
Completely.
Right?
Completely. I was the dude that checked my phone every 30 seconds. Like, I was spending, the app tracker or whatever on your phone can show you how much. I was the guy who was spending like 14 hours a day on my phone and 12 hours a day was on social media, checking the amount of likes, the amount of comments that I got. And if I'd made a post and in the first like hour, it didn't get enough likes, I would delete it. And like, oh my gosh, like my reputation and oh my God, who am I if I don't have good engagement? Like that was me. Right. And now I'm like, all right, here's my thoughts. Boom. And then people get mad or people love it and people praise or this. And it's like, all right, whatever. Right. Like, cool. Like, it's not that I don't care. It's that it just doesn't affect me. It's just like, cool. Like, this is what I believe. And I'm going to take opinions that are good. That knowing who you are and knowing what you believe, that is the answer to finding clarity. That's the answer to getting where you want to be. The problem with that is that you have to deal with, and I use this word very, very, very like specifically, you got to deal with some shit. Like you got to deal with that stuff in your life. You got to go and look at those dead bodies and those skeletons in the closet. You got to be like, I got to fix it. And we're just scared because our past is messy, because our belief system is messy, because growing up, you've got baggage, and that baggage, that messiness is just getting in your way. And the analogy I use with my coaching students was like, imagine you had a house party, but like in the closets in your home, you knew there were literal dead bodies. How stressed out would you be all the time when people came over? Like, you'd be stressed out all the time. You'd never be at peace. You'd want everything locked up. There's no way you would want to look at any of that. You want everything to look perfect. That's what it's like. We all have dead bodies. It's not a question of, do I have dead bodies? It's you do. You have them. They're there. Every single person does. It's called being a human, right? And so by figuring out who you are, you have to go in and you've got to open up those closet doors. You got to pull the dead bodies out of the closet and you got to go, okay, let me deal with this one. Okay, let me deal with this one. And some people have tons and some people have a few, but like, that's what it's like. And it's scary and it sucks and it's awful. It's horrible. How many times I cry, right? Like, it was like, this is the worst, Katie, but you feel better.
You may have cried a few times.
A few times.
Yeah.
A few times.
Josh, can I just say personally, this is so exciting because when you and I have our calls, these are all the problems in my life. And you always talk about how you're this incredible teacher and amazing at teaching people principles. And I'm sitting here getting to experience it all. This is just super exciting for me personally to watch you put your magic into the world and to really help and inspire and uplift everybody who's listening to this right now. I want to bring us to right now today. What's something that people would be surprised to learn about you and your life right now today?
Oh gosh. It's so weird. Like, I'm such an open book. Like, if you follow me on social media at all, it's like you basically know everything that's going on in my life. Like I've learned a lot about how my wife shops for Christmas, which is very, very interesting. Because like for me, my wife, she likes making a house a home and making it comfy and making it beautiful. And like, we joke that if I lived alone in my apartment, I would have a TV and a sofa and that would be it. Right. And now we have, our home is, very, very much to that. I don't know. Something that'd be interesting about me. I think the biggest misconception about me is that people think that I have some ulterior motive, that I'm trying to sell them or do something with them when it comes to like my engagement on Facebook or social media, that I just do it all to make money or different things like that. My entire social media presence, my entire business is really designed to do one thing. It's how do I ask the best questions so that I get the best information so that I can become the best version of myself and help others do the same. Right? Like that at the end of the day is all I'm trying to do. And that's morphed and that's changed of what that looks like. Sure. But I fundamentally believe that the only way you find the right answers is if you ask the right questions, right? Like, you got to ask good questions or you're going to get wrong data. You just are. And the only way that people learn, I think probably one of the biggest shifts that I've learned over the past year and a half is, Russell Brunson always says that facts tell and stories sell. And I thought that applied to marketing. And then I got into politics and I started laying out the facts to people and everybody ignored them. And they just made up their own delusional stories. And I'm like, wait. No, these are the facts. Like, this isn't up for, like, this is what happened. And people would just ignore it. They wouldn't look at it. And I was like, this is so weird. And then when I went and started telling stories, or I started asking questions to other people and they started telling stories, I watched people's minds completely shift their perspective. I'm like, this is a story, an analogy. A lot of times are made up, and it would shift people's belief. It would shift the way that people acted. And one of the things that we do, like inside of my company, is we focus on something what that's called a master story. And the master story is, what's the one story that you got to get someone to believe, that if they believe the story, they're going to be interested in what you do and want to buy your product, right? And that's, essentially it is. You have a master story of your life. And the master story of your life is the story that you personally believe about your life that is going to control everything about you. And what's been very interesting is just how different and how much you can change your life by changing the story inside of your head. And so I've really, really been focused a lot recently on, how do I spark conversations where people are telling me their stories, where people are telling me what they believe, where people are not giving me facts, because facts are very whatever. Everybody has their own. You can go on the internet today. You can Google. I can find evidence to back up any single opinion that I want, right? I can find evidence that Jesus Christ is still alive today. I can find evidence that Bigfoot's real or not real. I can find evidence that the sea is green, the sky is orange, whatever. Trump's still president, Biden's a puppet, whatever. It doesn't matter, right? Like, I can find evidence to anything, right? So like, what's really real? Well, what's only real is what people tell themselves, right? Now, I'm not saying that there's not objective, or there's not actual objective truth. I believe in morality and, absolutes. I believe that. But what's true in people's lives is only the story that they tell themselves. And so my core focus has been, and with the new podcast that we're launching or bringing back with, the Josh Forti effect and stuff, like the entire purpose is, how do I ask questions that spark conversations that allow people to tell stories, right? Because if they can do that, that's how you change people's perspective. That's how you change people's belief and ultimately change people's lives.
You have all of these attackers, these people who push back on you. And I see a lot of people who think they're trying to figure out what's his angle, what's his intention, right?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, like, that was one of the things that surprised me about you the most when I got on the phone with you. You applied to work with me. We got on a call. I needed to see if you were fit for me personally.
Yeah.
And you really surprised me. And I need to tell you, and I need everybody who's listening to hear this, like, you have this tremendous heart of gold. And it really surprised me. It did. And I want you to know that. I want everyone who's listening to know, like, when you say you're here to help people ask better questions and to find truth, I want everyone to know he means that. Like, I have witnessed that over and over and over again. And the level of integrity and purity and heart and truth that you pursue is really exceptional. So I want everyone who has maybe questioned Josh and wondered what his intention is, and he's just money hungry, or he's just looking for fame, he's just looking for attention. No, he's not just looking for attention. You actually are looking for the truth, and you are willing to get into the ring and to go in the fight and the wrestle, and do it in a way where you're open. You're like, look, I know I don't have all of the answers. This is what it looks like to me. This is my perspective. I'm really curious to hear yours.
Right.
And you're so open and engaging in that conversation. What are some of the, I don't know, thoughts, beliefs, tactics that allow you to both be so firm in your truth and at the same time be so open to somebody else's truth?
Yeah. That's a great question. Kind of going along with your point is my wife, one of the things my wife loves about me the most, and she's like, oh, I'm the exact same person online as I am offline. They're the same person, right? Yeah. And what that means is I'm ridiculously honest. Yeah. Like, I tell you exactly what I'm doing, right? Like during the election, and I'm not trying to get political here in any way. It was like, no, I think Trump's the best option. That's what we're doing. That is the purpose of this podcast right now. It is to convince you that Trump is the best option for this country. You can disagree with that. Cool. I don't care. Like, that's what I'm trying to do. And then once the election was over, I'm like, all right, new goal. Boom. This is what we're doing. So I'm very honest. And when you are insanely honest with yourself and with others, it brings a level of freedom, and it brings a level of trust and confidence in other people. I've been very blessed and very fortunate, and a lot of this not of my own doing, very, very blessed to be able to deal with some very high net worth individuals, very influential individuals, hang out with them or whatnot. And the one thing that a lot of them will tell me is, Josh, I know exactly what I'm getting with you. right? Like I may not agree with you, but I know you're not going to sugarcoat things. I know you're not going to just tell me what I want to hear, right? Like if you think I'm dumb, and I have told people this pretty openly, right? Then I'm like, yeah, you're just dumb, right? Like that's just wrong. Here's why, right? And they'll push back, right? And they'll be like, well, here's why I'm not. And I'm like, okay. And so I think as far as like tactics and principles of it is, number one, you have to know what you believe. And going back to that whole, knowing who you are and what you believe. One of the things that I think it's Ray Dalio. It might not have been him. I think it was though. He said, being radically open-minded doesn't mean that you let everybody else, like that you like just are open to everybody's opinions. It means that you are absolutely certain on what it is that you believe, but you're completely open to the idea that you could be wrong, right? That's what radically open-minded means. And so like, once he put it in that perspective, I'm like, oh, I know what I believe, and I am not afraid to tell anybody to their face exactly what I think, right? And you know that better than anyone, right? Maybe outside of Leah, right? But like, I will tell insanely powerful people that I think they're dumb, or not dumb, like rude, horrible a-holes, right? Like, I'm like, yo, you're not treating people right, right? Like I would, at the same time, if somebody comes back to me and can form a cohesive argument and a cohesive case as to why I'm wrong, I am completely open to that. And one of my friends, J.R. Rivas, he's a very good friend of mine. He said, Josh, the thing that's so interesting about you is that you're so willing to stress test ideas. He's like, you take this idea that you have and then you go put it out and you say, hey, everybody, this is what I believe. And then you sit back and you let everybody attack it. And then you see all the different ways, and then you adjust your belief based on, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. And he goes, and you've gotten so good to where you can do this and you can get feedback back in a pretty short amount of time to where you can come up with an idea, go stress test it and come back and go, okay, this is what I believe. And you'll follow that until proven otherwise. And then and this is the key part of it, when that idea no longer serves me, or when that idea, even if it's been 6 months, a year, 2 years, when someone can come along and prove to me that that idea is wrong, in an instant, I'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll change. Boom. And I'll switch to the next thing. Because as soon as I'm like this, and I told Leah, my wife, this the other day, because we were, going back and forth about something. I said, I don't want to be right. I want to know what is right. Right? I don't want to be right. I want to know what is right. And because of that, I'm right a lot. Right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm always right. It just means like, I don't care if I'm right or not. I just want to know what right is. And I think that's the thing, is know what you believe, follow it like your life depends on it, but be completely open to the idea when you could be wrong. As soon as you find out that you're wrong, change and follow that, and be okay with completely being wrong.
So good. So incredibly good. I have a few rapid fire questions for you here at the end.
My favorite type.
What's something that you do consistently every day of your life?
I really want to say read. Unfortunately, I don't do it every day, but I do it at least 5 to 6 days a week as I read. Yeah. I just finished up. I'm almost done with this book. It's called Essentialism.
Love Greg McKeown.
Oh, it's such a great book. One of my favorite books I just read for the first time, Deep Work. Phenomenal book. So I read almost every single day. Yeah. The other thing I do is I talk to God. And I say talk to God instead of pray because I pray a lot. I don't pray every day. I wish I did, but I talk to God every day. Yeah. Which is different.
So good. So good. What is a book that you keep on your nightstand and you frequently revisit?
The Bible, pretty much always, and Expert Secrets. Yeah.
Love it. What's some advice that you've received in your life that has really served you well?
I mean, like, know what you believe, why you believe, be able to defend it. I mean, I would say if there's like one underlying principle is take personal responsibility for your life. But the only way you can take personal responsibility for your life is if you know what you believe, why you believe it, are able to defend it. So I think that is probably some of the most, probably some of the best ones. The other thing that is completely non-personal development related is buy assets. Like if you just buy assets, you'll be rich. Like it's like the one thing that could change your life when it comes to like wealth creation. And part of buying, like, assets aren't just physical things. Like, coaching is an asset. Like, if you get good coaching in your life, like my life is like, you can't possibly not invest in you enough or invest in you enough. Like, you have to do it. So I think that, but probably know why you believe what you believe and be able to defend it.
And you've referenced your magic multiple times throughout this conversation. Can you, for everybody who's listening and is saying to themselves, this guy's radically fascinating, what is it that you do for people? Can you explain that for everybody?
Yeah, we finally simplified it down. I teach people how to explain what they do in a way that makes people buy. And that, I don't just mean buy their product. I mean buy into whatever you're selling. Your belief system, your point of view, your product, your service, your idea, how do you explain what you do or who you are in a way that makes people want to buy? And we do that through master stories.
And you do coaching, you have courses.
Oh yeah, 100%. We have workshops. We do a workshop. Actually, our next one starts in February, where we literally teach people how to write master stories or whatnot. But we take that information, we package it down, and it's that idea of what's the one story that I got to get someone to believe. And so many people are like, there's not just one. There's not just that. I'm like, yeah, there is. Yep. If you believe one story, right? And I'll do this. If you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins and rose again on the third day, story of redemption, you're a Christian. Hands down, period. You just are, right? That's the story. If you don't believe that story, you're not a Christian, right? Same thing with Trump. If you believe that Trump was the answer to save America, you voted for Trump. If you didn't, you didn't, right? With Russell Brunson, if you believed that, his master story of the potato gun, right? Had an online business and then it wasn't working. And then I built a funnel and then I had funnels and it was amazing. If you believe that story, you're going to buy funnels. And so we help people identify that one thing. It's how I met my wife and got her. I mean, my wife was, her and I getting together was like the most, should not have happened in any way, shape, or form. But it's because I told her a really good story, showed her a really good story, right? So we have all sorts of different things that we do, but I think that's the magic. Like, my favorite thing in the world is words. So everybody has their thing, right? Some people have art, some people have music, right? Some people have design, graphic design, right? Some people have language, which, by the way, language is very different than words, right? Language is a whole culture. Mine is words. How do I organize words in a way that shifts people's belief, get people to take an action, right? That's my art. That's my craft, is using words. And the way that you use words to actually do anything of significance is you use them to tell stories. And that's all I've done here today, is just tell stories.
And everybody can tell you're wildly successful at this. You're extremely good at it. You have worked really hard to develop and hone this skill set. And I can testify that Josh is exceptional, world class. You're world class at it. And you create huge results for people because you have taken the time to invest, to work so hard at developing your skill set, and
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And you figured out how to package up in a way that it is sellable, right?
Right.
Yeah. So incredible. Where's the best place for people to find you?
JoshForti.com. We have I don't know when this is going to drop, but we have
Forti.
Yeah. Forti is my last name. F is in Frank, ORTI, JoshForti.com. Or at Josh Forti on Instagram, at Josh Forti on Facebook. All my handles are that. We have a podcast that we've had for a while. We're having to rebrand for legal reasons with some trademark stuff. We have, it's relaunching in February 1st, big 28th birthday bash that we're doing. So it's gonna be super exciting. So yeah, JoshForti.com. It'll all take you to the best place.
And the new podcast name is the Josh Forti Experience.
Josh Forti Effect.
Josh Forti Effect.
Josh Forti Effect. Experience is Joe Rogan. As much as I wanted to do that one, I couldn't be like, this is the Josh Forti Experience. I would be like, okay, Joe Rogan, right? So you couldn't do that. But Josh Forti Effect, it's all about asking they're long form episodes, multiple hours, oftentimes long, free flowing conversations. And we take the biggest names and industry leaders that do not normally typically do long form episodes, and we bring them on and we discover a side of these people, like the Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson will be at episode 1. We just got confirmation of that. Imagine a 2-hour episode with Russell Brunson where he's not talking about funnels. That's what this podcast brings. Yes. Is a brand new side of people that, you get to see a new side, a new perspective, and hear stories that you've never heard before.
Yeah. Josh Forti, this has been absolutely amazing. It's just a gift to me, seriously, to have you on here. And I really, really appreciate you being here, being so open, sharing your stories, your experiences, what's working for you, and showing people how to live that in their life, right? And showing the way, shining a light. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And if I can just add one final thing, guys, I'm very blessed, very fortunate. A lot of things have gone right in my life, a lot of hard work and things like that. But I do have to give credit where credit is due. This would not be possible, would not have happened in any way, shape, or form without Katie. And once again, I know I'm on your podcast, so it kind of seems self-serving for you, but I'm not just saying this. I've paid you well over $100,000. It has been the single greatest personal development investment of my entire life. And I could not possibly recommend what she does more. I would recommend her over any other person I have ever worked with, including some of the biggest names that, you might see me besides. Katie has transformed my life because Katie did not tell me what to do. She told me and taught me how to figure out the answer and gave me a process for making decisions, a process for figuring out life that is unlike anything I've ever experienced. I've never read about it. I've never experienced it. It is a truly unique experience that I understand your difficulty, Katie. I don't know how to explain it. I don't understand. It's almost like magic. And I know that sounds cliche and woo-woo, but I promise you, with my reputation on the line, that you will not regret working with her as long as two things. Number one, you are coachable. You have to be coachable. And number two, you just listen to what she says, even when it makes no sense. If you do those two things, I promise you it'll change your life.
You said that so many times, by the way. This doesn't make any sense, Katie, but I've learned I just need to implement it.
You just do it. It's like you paid all the money for it. You're there. Take the risk and see if it works. It works.
Josh, that means the world to me, what you just shared. So thank you so much for being here, sharing what you just shared. And I'm going to invite everybody to go connect with Josh, reach out to him, follow him on Instagram, go listen to his podcast. He's a man who will change your life, change your world, help you create tremendous success in your life. Thank you for listening. This is What's Working Now.